بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. So I wanted to show you guys an illustration of what I said in the previous videos. So we talked about how there are different types of deviations, mainly two types, and obviously there's subcategories, but we are making like a general distinction between the two categories, right? And so we have first let's make these two pits that you don't want to fall into, right? So this pit is what I'm going to call al-maghdub, right? This only the literal translation is are the people um were who experienced the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But typically these people are Puritans. Then obviously like not all Puritans are bad because the prophets are also usually Puritans, but they're endorsed through revelation, right? I'm talking about inexperienced and people who are overly rebellious, right? Puritans who are not experienced, they don't have knowledge in particular, right? Those Puritans are dangerous, right? And they develop these traits because they don't have knowledge. They they think they have knowledge, but they don't, right? And that's depicted through their actions. Now, this pit is the pit of Daleen, right? Okay. So the Daleen are the ones who I said modifiers, right? So we're gonna call them either alterants. So these are like the alterants or the modifiers. Right. So these are modifiers in religion, and these are the Puritans of religion, right? So this is on the left hand side, we're looking at too much extremism, and over the right hand side, there is like they're extremes on both sides, but they're too extreme in on the right hand side to modify religion, right? They become too flexible. So again, the main difference is that these people, the Puritans, become too rigid, right? Right. And the Alterants, they become too flexible, right? And the rigid people, what they do is, the good thing about the rigid is that they uh they preserve the fundamentals. That's why they're attractive, right? Like they always like have these slogans, right? Which the Quran says, "Zukhruf al-qawli ghurura," that these ornated slogans that people get attracted to it, like gold-plated slogans, right? So they tend to preserve the fundamentals, right? So because of that, they're very attractive. So you can take that as a good thing or a bad thing, but I think this is not a good thing, because the problem with these Puritans that I'm talking about is that they really don't have knowledge. They think they have knowledge, but they don't. Like, for example, as I said, the Kharijis fall in this category, and the Prophet ﷺ said that the Quran is not going to go below their throat, right? They're going to read the Quran, but they're not gonna. They think they're going to understand it, but they're not. They're not. So the Kharijis used to use the Quran. So if we see a Khariji these days, we're like, especially the non-Arabs, will be really impressed by a Khariji because of his or her knowledge of the Quran, but they're actually, we need to be able to identify these people, otherwise we fall in their trap, right? Okay, so the problem with, whereas this preserves religion, these guys, what they do, they religion, what happens is that religion loses identity, right? Loses its identity. Okay, so that's the problem with the Alterants, is that over the generations, now religion decays in both cases, but look at the subtle difference, that in this case we lose religion. On the left hand side, we lose religion um, because they're too strict, right? Then religion decays, right? Well, let's try it this way. Religious practice decays, right? Because they're too strict in their implementation, right? Over the generation, people get frustrated with religion because religion is too dry and too harsh, right? So religious practice decays. So So you see how religion is decaying in both ways. Religion is decaying over here because religion itself is being, like religious understanding is being modified, with the Alterants, with the Puritans, religious practice decays because these guys are too strict and rigid, right? And I'll keep on right. I think so. There's a reason I put the maghdub on the left hand side because they're the worst of the two, or the dhalin are the better of the two evils. Because you know there are some good things that in the Quran also mentioned about the like as I said the Christians fall in this category from the Muslim perspective because they modified their religion too much, but they were humble, right? The thing about the dhalin are these people because they arise, as I discussed in the previous videos, arise from the Sufis tradition, and the Sufis are usually humble. So these people are humble, so they listen to what you're saying typically, and they don't like get aggressive, right? And and so that's why they because of that humbleness, they are better than the two. So for my understanding is that the shaitan falls in this category, right? The maghdub, right? Because he was the first recorded racist because he said Adam alayhi salam, right? خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. He only considered himself better as from Adam alayhi salam, from Adam, peace be upon him, because he said that you made me from fire, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me from fire, and then you made that Adam alayhi salam from mud, right? So just based on how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them, he thought he was better because fire is better than or mightier than mud, right? So he was the first racist. So this is one of the things I wanted to. This these people develop arrogance, right, or racism, um, in their attitude, right? Okay, because the dwelling they're very accepting, right? They become overly accepting, right? So you see these traits that, for example, the Hindu culture, right? Every religion, like you find Hindus saying, going into every place of worship and worshiping, right? They become overly accepting, and because their humbleness and because they're too flexible, they're overly accepting, right? So they're definitely not arrogant, right? Because they're accepting of other cultures, right? So I wanted to draw something over here, right? This is like the middle path, right? We want to stay here between these two. We don't want to fall in these pits. So I'm going to call this like the subul salam, right? The different paths to peace. Only, right? Islam is it's like Islam is, consider that this is a highway and there are two pits on the two sides, but this highway is made up of different lanes, right? And we'll talk about, differently. There can be different understandings. Islam is a very rich, there's difference of opinion about different things. So I consider those as all subul salam. But you want to make sure that you don't fall into these two pits, right? And history has been a struggle of people. I'm not looking at the political dimension of humanity. That's a completely different topic, right? But history has been an oscillation between these two religious groups, right? So an example again is the encounter of or the clash between recent clash between Ottomans and the Sauds, right? Ottomans being the Alterants, right? But I'm not like I'm not labeling them as in a strict way of Bali, and I'm not doing that. But they were inclined towards that direction, right? They were very flexible, right, in that sense, right? So the Maghdub are like the Puritans, right? The Sauds were the Puritans because they wanted to purify religion, right? And so they became overly aggressive and like it's still like a very common practice for the Arabs to, no offense to Arabs, they're my brothers, but but it's a reality that it's very easy for the scholars in our countries to call someone a non-Muslim, right? The takfir is because the Wahhabi tradition started with takfir. You see a lot of the Wahhabi scholars inclined towards calling someone a non-Muslim very easily, and this has with the spread of Wahhabi tradition, you see this very common in the Muslim countries like Pakistan, where the Maulvis of the masjids, they're very inclined toward calling anyone non-Muslim, right? So they're becoming too rigid, in other words, right? If someone becomes too rigid, you'll see this indication that they have this exclusion, right? They exclude other people, and it's part of being obviously racist. But I think we should write this explicitly, that they exclude people from whatever the the understanding they follow, right? Whatever they think is right. So again, the the examples, let's look at this examples. And as I said, one of the prime examples in my point of view of this is Satan falls in this category somewhere, right? Because of him being a very racist person. He was very practiced. Now, whenever these people are very devoted also, like the Kharijis were like, they were the Prophet ﷺ said that the Kharijis, he told the Sahaba radiallahu anhu about the Kharijis, that when you see them praying, you'll see that you'll think yourself as a lesser Muslim, because they'll be practicing so much. So that's again another property of shaitan. So okay, so examples again, as I said, like if you look at examples in history, we have the for the Maghdub, we have the Jews as an example, right? We know this is from the Quran, obviously. And if we look at the local picture, we have the Kharijis, right, or who fall in these categories, right? And the example for the Dalin or the Alterants prize from the Quran is Christian. It's again a broad umbrella, and these examples are given in the Quran, but as I said, these are broad umbrellas where the Maghdub, they are too strict, they become too aggressive, they kill they've resorted in historically killing the prophets. Obviously, we don't have prophets, but Kharijis killed a lot of Sahaba radiallahu anhu. So they'll kill pious people. That's one of their traits. And the awliya is that's one of the traits. Obviously, we don't have the Sahaba or the prophets now, but now they're obviously they go after the awliyas, right? That's one of their traits. And the Christians are fall into this category, and I really don't want to write this, but this is I'm gonna write it because we see this, right? We see these crazy Sufis, deviant Sufis, right? And the Hindus also fall in this category. But this again, there's a lot of gray area in this, right? We see the Khariji elements in the Hindus. The Hindutva movement, I think, in my point of view, is like the Kharijis of the Hindus, because they have started becoming too aggressive, and they're resorting to violence too much. So we want to stay somewhere in that way here, Subul salam, right? Subul salam is the path, is the right path. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He keeps us on the right path. And again, as I said, I'm a Sufi also, right? So the right path somewhere with some partial Puritanism and some partial like Alterants, in the sense. I'll talk more about this. What do I think about? Obviously, I've talked about the Maghdub and the Dalin, right? In the next video, I'll talk about what do I mean by the Subul Salam, because it's an important distinction, because it's, as I understand, is the right path to follow. So jazakallah for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.